Good morning, everyone. This is Diane, and thank you so much for Mr. Joe for the great presentation. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share my thoughts and about the how exposition contributed to build a green city. And of course, I looked into this particular exposition, Suncheon. Today, I'll start with a bit of a background about the expositions in general and an overview on how things have changed over time in Suncheon as a timeline, and looked into the institutional, cultural, and environmental changes in Suncheon as a green city. Bill already kind of mentioned about where I came from, but to provide some context, I studied landscape architecture, a field that I believe offers the sustainable solution to the contemporary challenges that we face. In 2016, I first joined the AIPH Congress in Vancouver for the first time. And then during the Green City Conference that year, we had the privilege of hearing from the Timothy Bitley, who is the prominent figure in biophilic design, which bridges the architecture and nature. And I was inspired by the potential of the expositions in creating inclusive green public spaces. So I've been involved in the exposition and a bit of AIPH ever since. Brief about the Expo legacy. In a broader sense, I think it's a global gathering or congregations where nations strive to address the universal problems. They become a hub for the innovation, and it's a place to showcase our effort in the science and technology, in economy, and more. After the expos, you always find those monumental physical legacies, which often remains in over 100 years. And this is a monument that is still being celebrated after the exposition for a long period of time. Then what about horticultural expos? It is also exciting global gathering, I think, and a congregation that horticultural exhibition embrace the nature-based solution for our universal challenges of our time, and powerful plants and sustainability as a core value. So, for instance, the exposition in 2018 in Taichung World Flora exposition stood out. They improved instead of destroy. So as they rejuvenate this old abandoned army base, converting into their lush green exposition site, which with the existing mature trees that are at least 30 or 50 years old. And I think it was a very clever way to say how they use the expo site, because you know how the expositions or newly constructed part only have this lollipop trees. But for the Taichung, they improved existing site with the by strategically locate some of those international gardens in between within the forest. So the gardens were very much integrated in the green, and it looked just amazing. And another great example is of course, the Floriade 2022, the plan for the land to eventually serve the public as a residential area after the exposition. So entire site become the legacy itself, I think. So what about Suncheon? They hosted two AIPH International Exposition within a decade. And of course, it brought notable transformations to the Suncheon city. Since early 90s, the city's efforts started in the early 90s with endeavors to conserve Suncheonman, which is the vital wetland that we'll visit on Thursday afternoon. The citizens had the Reed Festival in 1997 to bring people in and let people see what kind of natural resources they have in their land, and actively work on the accreditation work from the Ramsar conventions and from the government. But it wasn't enough to stop the development. So that's why they hosted the AIPH exposition in 2013. And because they needed something bigger, something that will convince the stakeholders to preserve a precious land that was, and it was possible because of the 2013 exposition. And I would say it was a complete game changer. So Suncheon City earned and consolidated the title of ecological capital of South Korea through the exposition in 2013. So, well, the change was quite obvious. You had a presentation from Suncheon on Monday, and probably you have read all the good things about the Suncheon so far. But my aim for today is to illuminate the impact of the exposition in creating a green city, hoping it offers some insights for future organizers. So first is the institutional change. One of the most notable change is the establishment of the robust legal framework in South Korea. After 2013, so in 2015, so just 2 years after the exposition, a new category, the concept of garden, was added to the law on the establishment and then the promotion of arboretum. So as you probably noticed from the previous presentation, 78% of Koreans lives in an apartment complex. So we do not own such land to build a garden for ourselves. And the concept of garden was not as big back then. And it still is a quite challenge for Korean context. And considering that, it is a quite remarkable success how they put the garden into the law. And we use the word garden Korean people use a garden in the modern context, and it's sometimes being used in a much more broader context, I think, because meaning instead of it's typical garden that we imagine, it's more of a green space that you see on the street, or the green pockets, or any plants. We refer to it as our garden in a modern Korean context. Along with this new legislation setting a milestone as a part of the 2013 exposition, for 2023, the Suncheon exposition further refined the laws, emphasizing the city's commitment to support the past expo utilization, and this included reducing levies for the expo and allowing the profitable activities, which requires more procedures without this law, and also facilitating the use of a fund, and it really expedited the process with the time constraint, and also establishing a committee for the efficient post-expo site management, which I think is really important as we are getting towards to the end of the exposition. And also, one thing I must mention is this special law established on 2023 mentioned the cooperation with the AIPH as a part of the clause. So I think it was a great success. At the same time, the same year, the new definition of a national garden was added to the law. The following years, the Suncheon's 2013 expo site was recognized as Korea's first national garden. You probably heard this term from different presentations. And in following years, the Taehwagang Garden in Ulsan was also designated as a second national garden in Korea, and there are only 2 so far. So the growing interest in hosting similar expo is a statement to the trend set by Suncheon, I think. And then maybe when you look at this graph on the right-hand side, this exponential growth at the end, it's explained by the subsidy from the government to the 2023 exposition. But you can still see the trend, the steady growing trend that was already there before the approval of exposition. So that really explains how the interest of Koreans in the garden industry is going up. Also, what is also very remarkable is that the over 40 different municipalities appear their interest in owning a national garden in their city. And there were many inquiries from the different municipalities wanting to host AIPH exposition, but unfortunately a lot of them turned down because they realized how big commitment it is. But considering that Suncheon, with a population of only 28 million, did amazing work. As a follow-up initiative, the various government agencies have been establishing garden-related initiatives such as a community garden installation and etc. And I think the term, again, the garden, is being used in a much broader context in Korea. So it's more of a green space with some ornamental trees, and then it may not include all these the principles that you usually see in a green city, but still it's. But you will, because I'm mentioning this because you will visit some of the sites this afternoon, and you you might think it's not like enough for the green initiative, but I have to mention because it's such a big change compared to what we had before. And yeah, it's just all part of the efforts to create a green city that serves the citizens, the pertaining cities, and this happens throughout the country. It's the great change that we see throughout the South Korea. On the same vein, the domestic garden competition have witnessed the surge in popularity. There are at least 7 garden expo held regularly, and this is just a garden exposition alone, and not the flower festival. And because the garden is again used in a more broader context, some festival accompanies like urban regenerations and urban greening projects are dedicated to the citizens afterward. The reason why I decided to introduce the institutional change is because in most countries in Asia, the government uses the top-down approach in the setting directive for the industry instead of bottom-up. So once there is a set of regulation from the government, the promotional project will follow, and then that leads to the investment from the government to the industry to build the garden culture, and then these garden educations are a part of it. So these projects including the educations or the gardener courses or the research are mostly run by the government subsidies or partially by the subsidy. And the rationale behind is to residents and then the citizens to enjoy green spaces, because and behind and so these projects focused on developing like new type of garden so that people can enjoy. And that the last part, the Suncheonman National Garden was selected as the first tourist visit. Was in the first place in the most popular tourist destination in South Korea. I think that's also shows the interest in the garden of Korean people. And while the popularity of gardens surged after the 2013 expedition, some argue that it may just a reflection. It's merely a reflection of a Korean's economic growth, with its citizens naturally gravitating towards the well-being and garden activities. Although there's some truth in this, but the undeniable fact remains that the 2013 expedition accelerated this trend. The research done in 2022 affirmed that the 2013 Expo's success is validating on economic and social and cultural and environmental grounds. So this recognition really garnered strong citizen support for the hosting Expo 2023. As previously discussed, Suncheonman Bay's wetland is a significance is internationally recognized with the recognition from the UNESCO or Ramsar, and its dedication to the living green for social cohesion. They earned the award during the 2022 World Green City Award by AIPH, and I think it is a valuable natural treasure preserved by the dedication by the Suncheon citizens and through the initiatives like the garden expedition. I believe we all remember from Monday, under the beautiful sun, we had a long walk to the Ocean Green Square, where there's a green lawn that extends from the city entrance, from the expedition entrance to the city center. And then the opening ceremony was actually held on that area. It's a versatile open space designed to host any programs and activities for the citizens. And it's actually outside of the National Garden, so it's open for everyone. So intention of was this that is to connect the people who lives in the city and invite them to the National Garden, which by stretching out the green fabric to the city. So the vision was that Suncheon establish the prototype of the ecologically sustainable reservoir in that area, I hope you remember the way we walked around, and then to become a precedent in South Korea and where people can learn from. And it will be interesting to see how things will actually turn out after the exposition. But these are the main green legacies Suncheon brought into for Expo 2023. And then studies on the post-exposition planning is still ongoing. If you remember, during the Expo conference on Monday, we had questions about the post-exposition plan, and then the study is actually ongoing. That's why I think the director of the planning gave somewhat generic answer to it, but because it's still going. But the prioritizing the citywide spatial development, emphasizing integration with the national industry and direction of urban development is the rough direction where they're heading to, as it was announced by the city mayor. I think the city mayor is now interested in including some pop culture to the city, so it'll be interesting to see how it actually turned out after. But yeah, that's it. If the goal was for the 2013 was just to raise recognitions and the significance of the Suncheonman wetland and create a buffer zone, but the 2023 was aimed for the urban regeneration and promoting garden culture and national gardens, and also fostering the garden-related industry growth. And this number on the right-hand side is a targeted budget plan for the year 2025, but the similar amount is already being subsidized every year to the same business. So we saw some, yesterday during the horticulture industry conference, so we saw some discouraging numbers on the flower consumption on the other day, but I think their ornamental plants or their shrubs, their potted plants have a better chance in South Korea. Beyond Suncheon, I think exposition inherently addressed the generational challenge, and then such event is a great turning point to convince the public and set the future directions to what we need. I think the understanding in an ecological and social perspective of the location in expo planning is more crucial than ever, especially in an early stage. To foster a greener city development. And this is just a bit of a side note. Everyone here probably already aware of about the exposition approval process, that after use must be planned along with the exposition application. But if the after use does not have a solid ground, this is easily being modified. And because it's not a physical monument, so you see from the BIE Expo, it's not a tower or anything, so I think that's why it's even more crucial to set a green and sustainable statement in early stage to consolidate the green legacy. For the AIPH exposition, themes can span from the horticulture, ecology, or garden, or even healing, just like the Suncheon on Monday. We saw on the other day, first and more, as long as it addresses the significance of the power of the plants and its impact to the human life. The two expos in Suncheon really solidified Suncheon's green city status and setting the precedence for the cities worldwide. We still have just over a month and a half until the expo closing, but I think it's not the end, but the beginning of Suncheon's continuous journey in urban sustainability. The legacy of this exposition isn't just a memory or record, but the legacy that remains in the land for a very long time. That's it. Thank you.